Why did I tell everybody on Twitter the other day to not rotate their ETH into Solana? Why am I not buying any more Solana right now with the few remaining dollars that I have? I'm going to talk about that and a little bit more in this video. Before we do me a favor, like the video if this content is valuable to you, and subscribe to the channel. I'm new to the YouTubes on here, trying to give some value to you guys as we're about to enter what I think is a new bull market. So I'd love to have you with me on that journey. Okay, so why did I tweet this? Well, Solana, as I'm sure many of you know, has been one of the hottest things in all financial assets recently. I mean, we've had a incredible run here on Sol. We're up massively from the bottom, over 500% if you were able to bottom tick this chart. But even since September, huge run, 165%, and now we're at the point where I have people texting me, should I buy Solana? Should I sell my existing coins for Solana? Should I sell my Ethereum for Solana? The answer to that right now, I believe, is no. It's a definite hard no. I want to explain to you why. First off, let's take a look at the Solana dollar chart here. Hilarious chart if you zoom way out. My goodness, classic altcoin chart right there. Just going to chop off the top for a little bit so we can see it. Solana right now is still in high time frame bearish structure, right? You've got your lower high here, this lower low, then we put in this lower low here on the monthly, came from this high here. So this high, we're at what is this, 48 bucks or so. This is the line that we really want to cross on the monthly to get super excited, because, you know, all things considered, this is just a bearish retest, and we could go lower and do something like that. That's possible. I don't think that's going to happen. I especially don't think we're going to -20. That would be very, very, very painful. I actually do think Solana is going to take this high and probably do something that looks more like this, right? And I am pretty bullish on this coin as a hold for the next cycle, but it's appropriate to buy these things at the right times. And the time to buy Solana, and I know this is all very obvious in hindsight, but the time to buy was when we had this you know, beautiful period here where you had a very lengthy what is this, over a year to basically to buy here in this accumulation range, and we've now broken out of this, right? But on the dollar chart, there's a couple things working against us right now. The main is that if we go back to the monthly here, this whole area up here is a gigantic monthly supply zone. I mean, this is going to be a very difficult thing for price to push through in one shot, in my opinion. And if we come to the weekly, we get similar zones here, right? We've basically this up move right here that gave us the final capitulation leg down. This is going to be tough for price to move through. As a general rule, you don't want to be buying into resistance like this, because even if we were to retest the consolidation and you were the poor guy who bought the top here, you know, you're talking about potentially a 43-50% move down. Like if we were to just retest that consolidation, which is like a perfectly normal thing for us to do, perfectly normal for us to go like that, right? So FOMOing in on the dollar chart, not a great idea. In retrospect, what happened here, let me clear this off, was that you had a nice little original consolidation here, as I see it, right? You had a manipulation leg down here, right? Price kind of moving against everybody who bought in there. And we are now entering into what I believe is going to be a long and continued expansion phase. You know, probably, I think we're going to go to 3 digits. I do, right? Let's do that so you can see that clearly. And what I like to do to figure out how far these things could go is I like to identify the original consolidation, and then I like to measure the manipulation leg, which is here. And you might maybe not want to use that wick. I don't know. We can kind of argue about that, but I generally do use the wick. All right. And then so we can kind of get a projection of where this move might go. Initially, I'm looking to target somewhere in the 2 to 2.5 range, right? And I'm looking for areas on the left side of the chart where price could be taking liquidity or running into supply. So on the left here, these were like super obvious target, right? You had these equal highs. We blew through those. And then ultimately, you're running into this area of supply here, right? This is sort of the last up move before we break structure and go down. And you can see price has done exactly that. We get a nice move up into the 2 to 2.5 range. We took these equal highs. And does this mean that the entire move is over? No, but it does mean that we're likely to be entering a retracement period before moving into the 4 to 5 zone, which is sort of like the final target I use for these sorts of projections. And on the monthly chart, what we have here is just like an enormous imbalance, right? And you can actually see the mid-range of this imbalance is right around right in between the 4 to 5. This is about $64.5. So what I'm looking for now on the dollar chart is an opportunity to get in a little bit lower, ideally in a discount to this range, right? So if we take this entire move up, a discount's going to be, sub $30, basically below the 50%. Some people might say, oh, we'll just use this last leg. And I would say this is maybe like a good thing to do, because I do think the market's quite bullish right now. I don't know if you're going to get these like super perfect entries, but this isn't really attractive to me above $32. And it's entirely possible that we can kind of come down here and just take some of this liquidity that's been built up. We've got a bunch of like trend line liquidity built up here. All of these higher lows haven't been touched, so it's entirely possible you can see price do something like this and swipe all of this and then kind of continue upward at some point. So that's where we're interested on the dollar chart. I do have a small bag. Unfortunately, I've gotten greedy and sold many of the coins I bought. And, I bought some here, bought some here, and then bought some here actually, and then sold there. So oops, but still have a small bag. I do want to get more of this for the bull run, but not now. The other thing besides the dollar chart, and what I think is the more important chart that you need to think about, is the Solana Ethereum chart, right? Because your goal as a crypto investor is not just to beat the dollar. During a bull market, you can basically buy anything and beat the dollar. Your goal is to beat the benchmark, right? And for me, this bull cycle, Ethereum is the benchmark. I mean, I am extremely bullish on Ethereum. You can sort of buy it and get access to everything that's built on Ethereum. It's got great tokenomics. The list goes on and on and on. And as an investor, you have the decision to sort of just buy ETH and walk away, or you can kind of stare at altcoin charts for a year or two. And you better be getting a good return in excess of ETH if you're going to do that, right? So The Solana Ethereum chart is not great. I would argue it's turning and becoming a great chart now, but I mean for basically a year plus, I mean this whole thing was just down only. And we've got the similar thing here. If we map out the weekly structure, right? You got a lower low here, which came from this high here. And then we had this low here, which came from this high here, right? So basically, until we take this high, ideally with a weekly close above, this is still a bearish chart. We have a similar thing here where you've got this very big weekly supply zone, right? This is like the last up move before we got this incredibly impulsive candle down, right? So again, highly unlikely that we just blast straight through this area, right? You're much more likely to see a retrace and then a pump higher after that if we are going to break through it. You had a similar setup here where you had this this high that we were targeting on the ratio. And you could see that we took that high and then sold off pretty sharply. If I come into a 4-hour chart, a 1-hour chart, you can really see the reaction around that level. And it does look like we're kind of in bearish structure now. I'm going to keep making lower lows on this for the time being. So I don't think you want to be selling all of your ETH for Solana because you're basically buying at resistance. And if all we do is retrace and just test this consolidation zone down here, because we did have a nice consolidation zone that gave us this pump. This is a nasty move still. Like if you bought the top here and you just get a test of like you're basically 43% down relative to ETH, and that's painful and something you really need to consider. The way I'm looking at it, Ethereum, for those of you who don't know, is extremely seasonal, right? So if we call up the ETH BTC ratio here, and I zoom way out, what you can notice is that we tend to pump at very specific times. So when did we bottom here in 17? That's January. Where do we bottom here? And then moon, that's December into January, right? Had kind of a sad little pump there, but a pump nonetheless in December, January. And then, we bottomed here in 2020 in January, 2021, mega pump in January. So I think you see where I'm going with this at this point. I suppose that last January, January of 2022, but this is bear market, right? So I don't put a lot of stock into that. It is interesting that January of this year, we did dump. But if you basically ignore sort of the peak bear market January, right? You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pumps and 1 in dump in January. So ETH seasonality is incredibly strong in January. Most of the time you get like a really big run up in the ETH BTC ratio and in the ratio of ETH versus other coins as well. So when you take this into account, right, when you take into account the seasonality of ETH and the fact that Sol ETH has basically mega pumped straight into resistance, and it's November 3rd currently as I make this video, we're coming into ETH seasonality we're at resistance. Like you don't want to be selling your entire Sol stack and buying Ethereum. It's just not a good move according to the charts at the moment. And I think that if you're patient and you wait for ETH to pump, right, you could maybe see something like we have sketched out on the chart here, where you have a retrace on Sol ETH into kind of February, March of next year. And then you could see Sol really take off versus ETH. You could see Sol actually running all of these highs. And I do think there's a really good chance Sol outperforms ETH in the next bull cycle. And that's probably where I'm going to be looking to make a rotation, is in the early spring of next year, late winter of 2024. And if you pull up the ETH dollar chart, you can kind of see that, similar to how Sol was running up into resistance and then kind of just blasted through everything before hitting an additional area of supply. The equivalent to that on ETH, I think, obviously we have this level, roughly here, that has been just the bane of our existence for a long time. But we've been spending quite a bit of time now accumulating below this level. And I do think that at some point in the near future, we are going to rip through here very hard. Probably going to go to like 2,400 or so very quickly. And then this zone here is probably the equivalent of what Sol is currently running into. So you're going to see ETH run into its kind of monthly supply, and that's going to be, somewhere in the $3,000 range, right? And if this coincides with a bottoming of the Sol ETH ratio, with the retrace of Sol ETH back down into this zone here, that could be a good spot to rotate, because then you're going to be looking at Sol potentially making its move up into this zone here, at which point, we're going to have another pullback in all likelihood, because I think just ripping through this high is going to be tricky in one shot. But that's kind of how you can think about playing the rotation game, or even if you're not going to do the musical chairs thing, how you can sort of at least get a framework for your long-term spot bags, which quarter you want to be buying which coins, and just following that plan. So hopefully that was useful to you guys. It's going to be all for today. I'm going to keep dropping more of these short videos, especially when I'm not able to do the live stream. So yeah, give me a follow on Twitter if you are not following me there already, at Steven Cesaro. And yeah, follow the channel, turn on notifications so you know we're going live with the stream. And I will see you guys next time.